Jack was a notorious criminal who had spent most of his life behind bars. Jack was known for his ruthless behavior and the fear he instilled in those who crossed his path. He had committed a litany of crimes ranging from theft to murder, and his reputation had earned him many enemies. One day, Jack woke up in a room with no walls. He rubbed his eyes, thinking he was hallucinating, but the room was real. There was no door, no window, no way in or out. Jack was trapped. He tried to scream, but no sound came out of his mouth. He pounded on the invisible walls, but they didn't budge. Panic set in as Jack realized that he had no idea how he had ended up in this room. Hours passed and Jack grew thirsty and hungry. He searched for water and food, but there was nothing. The room was completely bare except for a small cot in the corner. Jack lay down on the cot, hoping to find some comfort, but it was as hard as a rock. Days turned into weeks, and Jack began to lose track of time. His mind played tricks on him, and he started to see visions of his victims. They taunted him, reminding him of the terrible things he had done. Jack's conscience began to weigh heavily on him. He realized that he had never truly faced the consequences of his actions. He had hurt so many people, and now he was alone with his guilt. As time went on, Jack's mind began to clear, and he started to think of ways to escape. He examined every inch of the room, looking for a way out. He tried to dig through the ground, but it was solid. He tried to climb the walls, but there was nothing to hold on to. Days turned into months, and Jack started to lose hope. He was alone, hungry, and thirsty. He had given up on ever leaving the room. One day, Jack heard a noise. It was a faint humming sound, like the hum of a machine. The noise grew louder, and suddenly, the walls of the room began to materialize. They were made of a strange translucent material, and Jack could see through them. As the walls solidified, Jack saw a figure on the other side. It was a man dressed in a white lab coat. The man smiled and said, "Hello, Jack. I see you've made yourself at home." Jack was confused. "Who are you?" he asked. The man replied, "I'm Dr. Smith. I'm the one who put you in here." Jack was angry. "Why did you do this to me?" he demanded. Dr. Smith's smile faded. "You are a dangerous man, Jack. You have hurt a lot of people, and I wanted to give you a taste of your own medicine. I wanted you to understand the fear and hopelessness that your victims felt." Jack was silent. He realized that Dr. Smith was right. He had never truly understood the consequences of his actions. Dr. Smith continued, "But I also wanted to give you a chance to redeem yourself. You've been in here for 6 months and you haven't tried to escape. You've had a lot of time to think about your life and your choices." "What have you learned?" Jack thought for a moment, then said, "I've learned that I've been living my life all wrong. I've hurt so many people, and I've never faced the consequences of my actions. I want to make things right." Dr. Smith nodded. "Good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm going to give you a second chance, Jack. I'm going to release you." Jack was taken aback. "Release me? Where am I?" he asked. Dr. Smith replied, "You're in a facility that specializes in experimental psychological rehabilitation. We've been observing you for the past 6 months, and we believe that you're ready to leave this place and become a better person." Jack was in shock. He couldn't believe that this was all just an experiment. He had thought that he was really trapped in the room. Dr. Smith led Jack out of the room and into a hallway. The walls were white and there were no windows. Jack felt like he was in a maze, and he didn't know where he was going. After a few turns, they arrived at a set of double doors. Dr. Smith turned to Jack and said, "Good luck, Jack. Remember what you've learned in here and use it to become a better person." The doors opened and Jack stepped out into a bright light. He shielded his eyes and took a deep breath. When his eyes adjusted, he realized that he was outside. He looked around and saw that he was in a large field surrounded by trees. The sun was shining and birds were singing. Jack felt a sense of freedom that he had never felt before. As he walked, he saw a sign that read, "Welcome to Freedom Acres." He smiled and thought to himself that this was the start of a new life. As Jack walked, he felt something strange. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but something was off. He turned around and saw that the sign had changed. It now read, "Welcome to Experiment 217. Jack felt a wave of panic wash over him. He turned back around and saw that the field was gone. He was now in a laboratory, surrounded by scientists. Dr. Smith walked up to him and said, "Welcome back, Jack. You've been a great participant in our experiment. We hope that you've learned a lot." Jack was furious. He couldn't believe that he had been tricked. He yelled at Dr. Smith, demanding to be released. Dr. Smith just smiled and said, "I'm sorry, Jack. You're a valuable participant and we can't let you go just yet. But don't worry, we'll take good care of you." The room started to spin and Jack felt dizzy. He realized that he was trapped once again. He had been given false hope and now he was back where he started. As he lay on the ground, he thought of all the people he had hurt. He realized that he had a lot of work to do if he ever wanted to be a better person. The door to the lab closed and Jack was left alone with his thoughts. He knew that he was in for a long journey, but he was determined to make it out. You have just traveled to the darker limits. Join us again as we explore the strange, unexplainable, and frightening.